Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison LaGrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. India's Home Minister Amit Shah confirms during the ongoing parliamentary debate on Operation Sindoor that all three Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists behind the April Pahalgam attack have been killed in a recent operation by security forces. A ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia holds as military commanders from both sides meet, despite Bangkok accusing the other side of breaching the truce with overnight skirmishes. Iran says it did not interfere in the now paused negotiations aimed at securing a ceasefire in Gaza after US President Donald Trump claimed Tehran issued orders to Palestinian group Hamas during the talks. At least 4 killed in Angola as fuel hike protests enter day 2. President João Lourenço's government reports over 100 arrests in a crackdown on the unrest triggered by the high cost of living in the oil-producing nation. And the Philippine Senate leader says there won't be an impeachment trial against Vice President Sara Duterte, adding that a court ruling voiding the complaint will be followed. Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest from the United Nations. President Emmanuel Macron led France and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman led Saudi Arabia have reignited calls for the recognition of a Palestinian state. Foreign ministers from several countries gathered at a high-level conference at the United Nations. The UN meeting, boycotted by both the United States and Israel, is being positioned as a potential turning point in the push for a two-state solution. A proposed framework to resolve the decades-old Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, the ongoing UN meeting was originally scheduled for June, but was delayed due to the Israel-Iran war. Now, back on track, the conference aims to lay down a roadmap for Palestinian statehood while ensuring Israeli security. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced plans to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly this September. The move could add momentum to a growing list of countries pressing for Palestinian sovereignty.
We must work on the ways and means to go from the end of the war in Gaza to the end of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at a time when this war is jeopardizing the stability and security of the entire region. To achieve this, only a political two-state solution will help respond to the legitimate aspirations of Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace and security. There is no alternative.
Saudi Arabia, a longtime backer of the Arab Peace Initiative, called for clear steps to establish the State of Palestine. Later, when Saudi Arabia's foreign minister was asked about the role of Hamas in a future Palestinian state, he made it clear Riyadh recognizes Palestinian Authority and the PLO as the only legitimate representative of the Palestinian people.
The Arab Peace Initiative that was adopted in Beirut is the basis for any just and comprehensive peace. And here we've confirmed the need to support the International Alliance for the Two-State Solution to follow up on the outcomes of this conference and to consolidate international efforts to implement clear steps that are ecologically clear to put an end to the occupation and embody the Palestinian state in a manner that would achieve stability and security to all the region and enhance cooperation between the different countries in a manner that would bolster international peace and security.
You asked about Hamas. The kingdom's position has always been that the Palestinian Authority is the only that Fatah and the Palestinian Authority are the only legitimate, the PLO are the only legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, and that continues to be the case.
The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres urged the conference to serve as more than just another diplomatic gathering, calling it a decisive turning point in the ongoing conflict. But both the US and Israel not just opted out of the UN meet, but also vehemently opposed it. Israel dismissed the event, saying it was disconnected from reality. A US State Department spokesperson called the meeting a gift to Hamas, warning it could compromise the prospects of a peaceful resolution. The meeting comes at a time of deepening regional instability. Nearly 60,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war in Gaza began following Hamas's October 7 attack on Israel. Israeli authorities say Hamas killed 1,200 people and took around 250 hostages. The US President Donald Trump has also acknowledged the scale of prevailing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. During a visit to the UK, Trump urged Israel to allow every ounce of food into the territory, acknowledging for the first time that real starvation is occurring. Remarks come as aid agencies warn of widespread hunger and malnutrition, blaming Israel's restrictions on aid deliveries. Even as diplomatic fault lines deepen on the question of Palestinian statehood, amid the ongoing war in Gaza, the bigger question remains: will global consensus on Palestinian recognition translate into action or remain stuck at the level of declarations? Next, let's talk about Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te. He reportedly wanted a layover in the United States, and the US reportedly said no. Why? Because China was not happy. The story is simple on the surface, but packed with implications. Taiwan's president was supposed to fly out next week. He was planning to transit through New York first, then head to Central America, visiting Paraguay, Guatemala and Belize. On his way back, he was set to stop in Dallas before returning to Taiwan. But the trip was quietly shelved. It wasn't Taiwan that cancelled. It was reportedly Washington that did not give the green light. According to media reports, Trump officials hit pause after Beijing objected. The concern? That Lai's visit could derail US-China trade talks. Trump's administration is eyeing a summit with Xi Jinping. Now, there are reports that Trump is reaching out to CEOs to join him on a potential trip to Beijing. Now, Lai's stopover in the US was never announced formally, but Paraguay was preparing for his arrival. Earlier this month, Paraguay's president said at an investment forum that he was eagerly and warmly preparing to welcome Lai in August. Taiwan's foreign ministry says there was no cancellation or any denial of permission for the transit by the US side. They say the trip was postponed due to typhoon recovery work in southern Taiwan and tariff negotiations with the US. They also admitted to facing pressure from China.
I want to emphasize that, in fact, Taiwan faces protests and suppression from China whenever it does anything. What we should actually be questioning is the Chinese government. It should consider how to act as a responsible major power in the world, how to maintain regional peace and stability, rather than periodically escalating tensions in the Taiwan Strait, South China Sea and East China Sea.
Whatever the reason might be, the optics are damaging. Lai won last year's presidential election with the lowest winning percentage since 2000. He now risks looking weak at home and abroad. Adding to the uncertainty, Taiwan's trade officials are currently in Washington for talks to avert a threatened 32% tariff by Trump. This isn't the first time stopovers became political in the US. In 1995, one visit triggered missile tests by China near the main island of Taiwan, when the then leader visited the US to speak at Cornell University. In 2006, George W. Bush blocked the Taiwanese president from stopping in New York after the leader upset the Bush administration with a series of pro-independence policies that risked provoking China. The Taiwan issue remains one of the most sensitive and pivotal contention points between Beijing and Washington. China views Taiwan as a part of its territory. It has intensified military pressure on the island since Lai took office. It branded the Taiwanese president as a separatist and parasite. Beijing also opposes any form of official interaction between Taipei and Washington, including visits to the US by Taiwanese leaders. China today acknowledged the reports of Trump blocking the Taiwanese president from a US layover and said that it opposes any kind of interaction between Taipei and Washington.
The Chinese side has noticed the relevant reports. What I want to emphasize is that China firmly opposes any form of official interaction between the United States and Taiwan, and firmly opposes the leaders of the Taiwan region visiting the United States under any name or for any reason. This position is consistent, clear, and firm. It is hoped that the U.S. side adheres to the One China principle and the 3 Sino-U.S. joint communiques, handles the Taiwan issue with utmost prudence, and jointly promotes stable, healthy, and sustainable development of Sino-U.S. relations.
The United States, like most countries, does not recognize self-governed Taiwan as independent, but it is opposed to any unilateral change to the status quo and is committed to supplying Taipei with weapons for self-defense. Nancy Pelosi, whose visit to Taipei in 2022 sparked uproar, said the recent move to not allow Lai to visit the U.S. sends a dangerous signal. And that's not all. Another twist in the story came today. Donald Trump said he is not seeking a summit with Beijing. He called the news fake. So here's the big question. Is Taiwan just collateral in a bigger game, a bargaining chip in the Trump-Xi equation? It's not just about a cancelled stopover, it's about signals. Who's influencing U.S. policy and what that means for Taiwan? And now we move on to China, where flash floods have ripped through the northern outskirts of Beijing. Torrents of brown water crashing through streets have swallowed cars, toppled infrastructure. Visuals showed entire neighborhoods turned into rivers, and mud, glass, and debris scattered across what used to be busy streets. The worst hit areas are the northern districts of Beijing, Mayun, Haro, and Yangqing. In Mayun, the district, the rain was relentless. 543 millimeters, almost Beijing's average annual rainfall, dumped in just a few days. At least 30 people have died across Beijing, and 28 of them in Mayun district alone. Residents in the Mayun district were seen picking up pieces after rains left a trail of destruction. Warehouses stood gutted, their interiors caked in mud and broken glass. For small business owners, this damage was unprecedented.
We didn't dare go in. Who would? You go in, it might all come down on you. This part here, luckily, was just beer crates. It was all stacked together, so even though the water hit hard, it didn't get too badly damaged. But still, a bunch of empty crates got washed away. Beer, condiments, drinks, we had 8 barrels in total, only 1 barrel's left. One of those big 1x3 barrels, super heavy. The black tea, green tea, all in big bottles, there were over a dozen crates. Altogether, probably more than 30 got swept away. Everything is gone. Everything in the village is gone. No electricity, no water.
In Huairou, floods have damaged bridges. In some suburbs, rescuers have used plastic basins to transport villagers to safe areas. Over 80,000 people have been forced to flee due to the deadly flooding. In Mayun alone, 17,000 were evacuated. The challenges are massive. Dozens of roads have collapsed and over 100 villages remain without power or phone signal. Beijing issued its highest level flood alert on Monday. Schools, construction sites and tourist spots all shut. Authorities even had to release water from a reservoir in Mayun to make space for the incoming torrents. The horror isn't limited to Beijing. In eastern Hong Kong Island, the rains created a flash waterfall. Water poured down hillsides like a bursting dam, turning slopes into rivers. Take a look. The situation is not new. In 2023, Beijing saw its heaviest rainfall in 140 years. 33 people died back then. In 2012, devastating floods in Beijing and China's Hebei province claimed 145 lives. And now it's happening again. President Xi Jinping has called for an all-out effort to search and rescue those still missing. Chinese authorities have allocated $28 million for recovery efforts. The rains have stopped in Beijing as of now. Tourist sites in Beijing resumed operations, and the northern part of the country also ended a previous alert for rainstorms that was issued yesterday evening. But the damage from the storm is huge. Damages from natural disasters have cost China $7.5 billion so far this year. The Emergency Management Ministry said that floods accounted for nearly 90% of the losses. In June, the central and southern regions of China saw landslides and flash floods as the rainy season arrived earlier than usual. A total of about 23 million Chinese people have been affected by natural disasters this year, and at least 620,000 were displaced. These numbers don't even take into consideration this week's floods in and around Beijing. Now, these are not just natural disasters. They are a climate alarm, growing louder each year. And behind every statistic is a shattered home and a life that may never recover. And finally, shifting focus to India, the world's biggest democracy is quietly rewriting the rules of global wildlife cooperation. New Delhi's diplomats aren't just bringing back the lost cheetahs, they are also building bridges of conservation across the world. The cheetah, the world's fastest land animal, once ruled India's wild plains, but it was declared extinct more than 70 years ago in India. Now that silence has begun to break in Madhya Pradesh, the central Indian state is also home to the other majestic big wild cat, the tiger. Now, under Project Cheetah in 2022, 8 cheetahs arrived from Namibia. In 2023, a dozen more came from South Africa. All were welcomed into the wild heart of Madhya Pradesh, the Kuno National Park. At present, Kuno's cheetahs are 26 strong, 9 adults and 17 Indian-born cubs. A showpiece featuring cheetahs even made it to India's Republic Day parade earlier this year. But India's ambition doesn't stop at reintroduction. It wants to replenish, repopulate and restore its lost cheetah population. And for that, it's turning again to its friends in Africa. Over the past 2 years, quiet diplomacy has been underway. Botswana has committed to sending 8 cheetahs. With Kenya, the wildlife cooperation talks are broader, focused on tech, training and trust. And with South Africa, where political churn has delayed the next wave of arrivals, but not dimmed the spirit of partnership. Namibia, meanwhile, remains India's proud partner. Addressing Namibia's parliament earlier this month, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said New Delhi remains deeply grateful for Windhoek's gift of cheetahs.
You help us in reintroducing cheetahs in our country. We are deeply grateful for your gift. I had the privilege of releasing them into the Kuno National Park. They have sent a message for you. Inima Aishe Oili Nawa. Everything is fine. They are happy and have adapted well in their new home. They have grown in numbers as well. Clearly, they are enjoying their time in India.
New Delhi, a beneficiary of wildlife cooperation with African nations, is also championing the cause of translocating wildlife from India in the countries where they have been long lost. After the success of Project Tiger, the country is returning nature's favor, and the first beneficiary is Cambodia. Post-monsoon, 6 Royal Bengal tigers, India's national animal, are expected to roar again in Cambodia's Cardamom National Park. The tiger has been extinct in Cambodia since 2007, but with India's help, that may soon change. Indian officials have completed surveys in Cambodia, covering both the prey density as well as the anti-poaching measures. And reports citing senior wildlife officials make it clear, after years of preparation, Cambodia is finally ready for Indian tigers. This is conservation beyond borders, where diplomacy doesn't just speak in treaties, it breathes through paw prints. From extinction to rewilding, from sorrow to song, India's big cat diplomacy is telling the world the war is not over. And that's all we have on the show for today. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gursheen Garland and you are watching Firstpost. In the next 2 minutes, I get you the top 40 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. We begin with India.